Hello everyone, Trophy Wine Hunter. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm doing another tasting on my Barolo series. So recently I've really got into Barolo. I really want to learn a little bit more about Barolo. I'm like most drinkers. I love Barolo, but that's not my preferred area of drinking. So I'd like to learn and delve into it a little bit more. Having said that, there is some restrictions because if you're just getting into the market and you're buying new Barolo, Barolo really needs about 20 years to really appreciate it. But we've got to do what normal people do, which is just basically buy whatever is available in the liquor stores, and that's what I'm doing. So if you've seen my previous video, I did a video on San Silvestro Barolo, so that's a nice start. That was from, I think, the Barolo sub-region. If you recall from that video, there's 11 sub-regions. So I decided to go and buy some of the other Barolos that are out there in the market and just start to figure out what I like. And again, this is just about experimenting and tasting through wines and looking at what is your personal preference. So I hope that through these videos that we'll learn together. I'm going to try and figure out what works for me, but that might not be for everyone, but I'm going to try and give you my kind of views on the different areas, because Barolo is not just a single thing. You can't just say, I love Barolo. There's 11 different regions in Barolo, and there's 100 some odd, 170 some odd cru vineyards. So there's so much to learn and there's so much variation. And I think to generalize and just say, I love all Barolo. I mean, you probably will see some differences, and that's what I'm trying to discover with these series of videos. So today I'm tasting 3 different Barolos that you can hopefully buy in most liquor stores. At least I bought these at the BC liquor stores, so they are available. So the first one is the Mirafiore 2016 Barolo. So Mirafiore is an old established producer in the Piedmont region. It's been around since 1878, and like most Barolos, it's aged for I think 38 months, 2 years in oak and the rest in bottle. And again, when I looked at the other videos, if you recall, one of the things that I'm looking at with Barolo is the altitude, because Barolo has to be grown in an altitude between 170 meters above sea level and about 540 meters above sea level. So generally speaking, you're looking at the higher end of that kind of altitude, because when you get higher, because Barolo is a slope, it's a hill. And so when you get higher up, then there's more sun exposure and the grapes will ripen better. The optimum range for altitude is probably around 400 meters above sea level. That's kind of what I'm guessing. And again, we're just drinking through different wines and trying to figure things out for myself. So this wine is actually from the Serralunga D'Alba region, again, one of the 11 regions in Barolo, and it's about 300 to 350 meters above sea level. So with Serralunga D'Alba, supposedly the characteristic of that, it's going to be dry and tannic, but it's still going to have great balance and velvety. And it comes from the 2016 vintage, which is probably a very strong vintage in Barolo or the Piedmont region. The next wine we're going to drink is going to be the Vajra Barolo, and it's from Bricco Delle Viole. So again, Vajra is a more recent winery. It's, I think, established in 1968, and it's aged 25 months in Slavonian oak. It's from the Barolo region. So there's the sub-region, one of the 11 sub-regions is Barolo. And with this region, you're looking at rich and deep wines with more austere tannins. And if you look back at my video for the San Silvestro, you'll notice the word Bricco. And what I said in that video is Bricco is generally good for Barolos. When you see Bricco and Sori, that means these are very good sites. So Bricco essentially means a hilltop, and Bricco Delle Viole means hill of violets. This winery is located around 400 to 490 meters above sea level. So if you go by what my hypothesis is that the best winery is around 400 to 440, this would be a top end winery. And the last wine we're going to drink is Caterno Fertino. So this is 2018 Barolo, and it's from Monteforte d'Alba, which is another sub-region. And the Cru vineyard is called Mosconi, and then in particular the region of the Cru vineyard is Mosconi, and in particular the actual vineyard is called Vinapied. So Caterno Fertino, again, it was founded in 1982, so fairly recent winery, but Caterno and Fertino are both very famous names in the Barolo region. It is from the Monteforte d'Alba region, and this is supposed to be the region that has the fruitiest, most cherry-like wines, whereas the other regions that we talked about are more focused on structure. Now that's again from the textbooks, from the readings, and now we're going to taste them and see what we think. This is in between in terms of altitude. It's about 360 to 300 meters above sea level. So again, if we're looking at these wines, not even tasting them, you'd think, well, the 2016 is the best vintage, but in terms of altitude, maybe the Vajra is the best altitude. So it's kind of, there's so many factors. And I think, you can hypothesize all you like, but it's really up to the drinking experience, which I'm really interested in. So let's go and drink through these wines and see what we think. This is a little bit different from my other videos where I go in depth and I kind of talk from a position of a little bit of knowledge. I'm a little bit like a beginner in Barolo. So I enjoy Barolos like most people, but I don't know a lot about them. And I'm just kind of going through it, and I hope you enjoy this process because I'm just processing and trying to learn more about it. And based on what I read and also what I drink. So let's try the first one. So this is again the Mirafiore. So again, old established winery, and again from the Serralunga D'Alba region. I'll let you know that we did open these at around in the afternoon today. I drank with many people, got their views on all the wines, and now I'm tasting again. So it should be well aired at this point. So we should compensate for the youth of this wine. So on the smell, I get like cherries. I get the alcohol. You can feel the alcohol on this aroma. It's 14.5%. I can smell that. But I smell a little bit of kind of straw or some herb elements. Yeah, so I almost want to say licorice also. But yeah, kind of like Italian spices. I get that on the nose. So on the taste, you get a lot of tannins, obviously, because it's still young, but really full. There's a good acidity, but it's different from Chianti, and it's not kind of sour cherries. It's not sour in terms of the acidity. It's very full, and I think that's the difference. I think with Chianti, Chianti is a little bit lighter in style, although both have great alcohol content. This has a lot more savory elements to it than I would see it with Chianti wines. So I see kind of the structure of this wine. Although I wouldn't say it's heavy bodied, I'd say it's medium bodied. The tannins are quite aggressive still. there's some underlying fruit, but that's not the characteristic to me. It's more savory elements like Italian spices and herbs, and also some floral components to it. I don't know what the rating is. Again, I'll put that in the comment section, the Wine Spectator rating, and also the price at BC liquor stores. But this is a very structured wine. It's a very, compared to my experience with San Silvestro, again, a little bit, I would say in the quality wise, a little bit higher, but very, I wouldn't say it's a warm and encompassing wine. It's a very executive wine, like very, I know I'm wearing a suit, I'm meeting you for this first time. That's what I feel about this wine. Good wine, but not inviting and not warm. I don't even know the Wine Spectator rating, but to me, it's like an 88 point wine. Good wine, but not really, wow, I really want to get to know you better. It's more just, oh, it's nice and appealing like most Barolos. Now let's taste the GD Vajra. So again, this is a about 400 to 490 meters above sea level, and it's from the Barolo region. So on the smell, it's not as, I feel it's more balanced than the Mirafiore. It's not as in your face. And I feel it's got a little bit more floral, like violet elements. It's a little bit more reserved, but in a more comforting way to me. More elegant in the style. And I feel that I could smell this and not get bored of it. Whereas with the Mirafiore, I think it's more like one-dimensional. But this is, it's got, I can smell some cherries now. The alcohol is not as prevalent. Yeah, really like tart cherries. Yeah, and some floral elements to it. I keep on smelling some licorice, but on all these wines. Yeah, but it's very elegant. As you can see how many times I'm sniffing this wine. The aroma is, I think, superior to the Mirafiore, in my opinion. Tannins are aggressive, but I do feel the intensity of flavor a little bit better on this wine. A little bit more mid-palate, a little bit more body. I still don't think the body is that heavy. It's medium body. Acidity is very balanced, but I'm feeling a little bit more complexity on the aftertaste, like almost like tar, charred oak. There is dark fruit on this also. But again, the element of Barolo to me is never like fruitiness. It's not like a fruity wine. That's not the first descriptor I would think of Barolo. I would think this is like tar, Italian spices, charred oak. That's kind of, it's more savory in its approach. I did take a peek of the ratings. I think this is rated pretty highly by most people. But in my mind right now, it's quite nice. I would rate it in the 92, 93 point range at this point. But I think it's got more potential than the Mirafiore, in my opinion. I do know, unfortunately, I have the benefit of knowing the prices of these. So this is more expensive than the Mirafiore. But I think it's more complex wine. And I enjoyed a little bit more. Again, it's hard to taste right now without food, but I believe that this would really be very nice with some food, a little bit of lamb or some steak, some Italian pasta. I think it would do very well with food. This is 15%, and you can tell it's a heavier wine. The tannins are heavier, but I think it's got better balance, and it's got a little bit more intensity of flavor, and I do like the complexity of the aftertaste, a little bit more complex. It is more tannic, I would say, in general, than the first wine for Serralunga D'Alba. I also just had dinner at a restaurant in town and drank another wine from this region, from the Barolo region, which is the Marchesi de Barolo 2015 Canubi. And I actually wasn't that impressed with the wine. Canubi, the altitude is about 290 to 320. So I know Canubi is very famous, but so far, based on my tasting with Marchesi de Barolo, I don't think Canubi is that great. And maybe it's more people know it better. I would much prefer to drink this Grand Cru region, which is Bricco Delle Viole. The last wine we're going to taste is going to be the Caterno Fertino 2018 Mosconi Mirafiore. So again, the region that it comes from is Mirafiore D'Alba, and its altitude is between 360 and 380 meters above sea level. So again, I think it smells very similar to the Vajra, lighter and more sophisticated, more balanced than the Mirafiore, which in my mind is a little bit, now in hindsight, tasting against these other wines, a little bit more structured and a little bit more one-dimensional, in my opinion. This has got lots of nice floral elements to this, like potpourri, violets, like a sage, lots of elements, a little bit of dried plums. Yeah. The more you smell this, the more fragrant this is. This is beautiful, very floral. Chalk, a little bit of chalkiness. So I think in terms of the smell, this is the one that I prefer the most. And I get the most out of this. Very vibrant, aromatic. There is a lot of alcohol in this wine too. So I'm going to look at this. 14.5%, but you can really smell. These are young wines, so they're really quite aggressive in terms of the alcohol and the tannins probably. But beautiful smell. I'd say in terms of just the aroma, I'd say this is the best for aroma, then the Vajra, and then the Mirafiore. Although the Mirafiore is an excellent wine. Don't get me wrong. These are, and that's the thing with Barolo. I don't think you get very many terrible experiences with Barolo. I mean, you're not going to get cheap Barolo. At least in Vancouver, you're looking at about $50, $60 minimum for a Barolo. And I don't see many bad Barolos out there. So there is quality. Yeah, but this is really beautiful. It's got some cherry. I keep on smelling it. It's very, very nice. And again, I keep on smelling this. It's just so refined, almost a little bit of confectionery candy smell. Tannins are very aggressive on this wine, very young, but there's a lot going on. I would say in terms of mid-palate, I think the Vajra is the best in terms of the mid-palate. This one's a little bit lacking in the mid-palate. Good tannic structure, good balance. The taste right away is very good. It drops off a little bit. And it's funny because when I tasted this in the afternoon, I think I preferred this one. Now I'm going back to the Vajra. I think the Vajra might be my favorite at this point. The smell is really nice, so it's hard to know which one you like the best. Yeah. Again, I don't know the scores of these wines, so I'm gonna rate this a little bit lower, like 91 points. If you asked me when I first drank this wine, I thought I liked this the best. But now, upon tasting, I don't feel it's got a great mid palate. And it's one of these wines where it hits you in the tongue and then kind of drops off. So I'm not liking that part of it. But again, you can do all your analysis based on book learning, but what should be the best wine? What is the rated best wine? But you have to go by taste, and I'm just going by taste. So I just also look at the corks. I'm not going to do a review of all the colors, but what I will let you know is that it is quite noticeable that the Vajra is the darkest in color. And I'm just going to give you the three corks. If you can see that, the three corks, and I'm trying to do this kind of equal, but if you see the three corks, the first one, the Barolo, is the shortest. Then next is the Vajra, and then next is the Caterno Fertino. So if you just look at the cork size and knowing that, generally speaking, the longer the cork, the longer the age of the wine, you'd say the Caterno probably is the best wine. The Caterno is the most expensive of the wines. But I would have to say, and again, based on our tasting group, most people, I would say, were split between these two wines, which one was the best. And then there were some outliers that like this wine, but most people would say these two. I'm now thinking actually wine 2, which is the Vajra, is my favorite at this point. And it's kind of funny because if you had asked me, like when I initially tasted it, I thought the Caterno was better. But now after a couple of hours, again, I'm going to taste this one more time. Yeah, I still think it's got good tannin, lots of cherry, which is generally speaking, if you look at the textbooks, Mirafiore D'Alba is the most fruity wine, most cherry wine. Actually, I'm liking the GD Vajra the best at this point. And I don't know the tasting. So kind of in summary, I've tasted 6 Barolos, or I think over the last 48 hours. And in my mind, in terms of the rating, my favorite would be the Vajra. Then I think I would go to the Caterno Fertino. Then I would go to perhaps a tie between the 2015 Marchesi di Barolo Canubi, and then the Mirafiore, and then go to the Silvestro wines, of course, the single vineyard. No, I would go to the one that is the blend of the 11 vineyards, and then the single vineyard. So what does that tell me about my taste? I think for me, maybe I do like the Barolo region, which has a little bit more, the Barolo sub-region of Barolo, which has a little bit more structure and austerity. And I think I do like Bricco, which is the higher kind of altitude wines. One thing I do know is that I probably won't drink Canubi based on my initial, maybe I'll try a few more Canubis. But I always thought Canubi was a great kind of cru vineyard in the Barolo region. But I have to drink a couple more Canubis to make sure that my initial analysis, but I'm not that impressed with Canubi. It's actually, and if you look at it, Canubi is actually quite low in terms of the altitude. So maybe it's over emphasized just because I know people know Canubi and it's easy to get. I don't know. But this Bricco Delle Viole, so perhaps this is the vineyard for me. Again, this is just a learning experience for me. And I hope that you appreciate that perhaps some of the things are for people that drink Barolo are not really make sense. But this is the process, and what I'm trying to show you is the process of a wine drinker. Sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes your opinions change, and it's all based on tasting. It really cannot be just based solely on your wine education. You really have to taste for yourself and say, well, this is what I enjoy. This is what I don't enjoy. And try to then narrow down kind of what fits for you. So I hope you've enjoyed this tasting. Until next time, happy drinking.